Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a really interesting question. What if all that incredible expertise, locked away in academia, could actually have a much bigger impact? And maybe even, well, boost a scientist's income outside the usual university setup? Just think about it, years of deep research, all that knowledge academics build up.
That's exactly the heart of it. For so many brilliant people in the academic world, it can feel a bit confined sometimes.
Hmm.
There's the constant chase for funding, right? The pressure to publish in certain journals, and, well, sometimes just a feeling that their amazing work isn't quite making the real world difference it could.
Exactly. Which brings us neatly to the focus of our deep dive today, Dr. Jane Smith. Now, she's a highly respected biochemistry professor, top university, a real expert in CRISPR technology. Her work on making CRISPR-Cas9 more specific for gene editing, hugely regarded in academic circles. But like so many others, she was facing those familiar issues, grant money getting rejected, the lab budget always stretched thin, and this real desire, to see her research do something more tangible.
And Dr. Smith's situation is, well, pretty classic, actually. You've got someone right at the forefront of this, like, revolutionary tech. Everyone in her field knows her work. But she's feeling this gap, this disconnect between what her discoveries could do and how they're actually being used.
And to really help us unpack this, we've got the perfect guy, Dr. Ari Masudi. He's a molecular biologist himself, but he made the leap into industry consulting. He's got a PhD in molecular and cell biology, a master's in strategy and management of innovation. Basically, he really understands how to help deep tech companies. Those firms built on serious science and academic labs, too, how to bridge that exact gap we're talking about.
Dr. Masudi's perspective is really valuable here. He gets the academic side, the research pressures firsthand. And now he also sees what industry needs, where the opportunities lie. He kind of sees how these two worlds could, connect much more effectively.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive then is to explore exactly how academic scientists using Dr. Smith's journey as our main example can tap into what we're calling the gold mine of their expertise. Through scientific consulting, we want to see how this can be a real viable path forward.
Okay, let's talk about this untapped gold mine idea. What is it specifically about the skills and the way academics think that's actually so valuable outside the university walls?
Well, I think a big part of it is getting past a common misconception. A lot of academics, and Dr. Smith felt this way at first too, might think their skills are, only useful in academia. They might worry maybe that working with industry means selling out somehow, or that companies just wouldn't get or value their super specialized knowledge.
And the reality is often, well, the complete opposite. Especially in fast-moving fields, think biotech, pharma, deep tech generally. These industries are constantly looking for very specific, very deep scientific knowledge to solve tricky problems, to innovate faster. They need that kind of profound expertise academics spend years developing.
And it's more than just the facts they know, right? It's the way they approach problems, that academic rigor, the ability to think fundamentally, design complex experiments. That whole package is valuable, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. Academic research often digs really deep into why things work the way they do, the fundamental mechanisms.
Yeah.
That kind of deep understanding, it can be incredibly useful for a company trying to fix a process or troubleshoot something complex, like an academic's knowledge of enzyme kinetics could be the key for a biotech firm trying to scale up a new drug effectively. You just don't get that from a surface level approach.
And here's where it gets, well, really interesting for many people, the money side, the potential earnings. We're talking about expert consulting fees, maybe $200, maybe even up to $600 an hour in some cases. That's a number that often catches academics by surprise.
Yeah, it's quite something. And what's really key here is that the main barrier often isn't that scientists lack valuable skills. Not at all. It's more about just not knowing these opportunities exist or not having a clear map for how to access them. How do you turn that super specialized academic skill into something industry clearly needs and will pay for? That's the tricky part.
Exactly. So let's get more specific about Dr. Smith. We know she was this respected biochemist, CRISPR expert. What were the specific challenges, the things that really pushed her to look for something different?
Her story really hits home for a lot of academics, I think. Even though she was making big contributions in CRISPR, doing great work on specificity, she was still constantly fighting for grants, dealing with rejections. It's relentless. And that, of course, squeezed her lab budget, right, which makes it hard to pursue new ideas. Plus, beyond the practical stuff, there was this deeper thing, wanting her work to actually do something out there, beyond just journal papers.
Yeah, and she put it really well. She said, I was passionate about my work, but it felt like I was shouting into a void. I wanted my research to make a real difference, but the funding treadmill and academic bubble made it hard to see how.
Hmm. That really captures that sense of frustration, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Wanting your work to matter beyond the lab walls.
Absolutely. It's a fundamental desire, I think, to contribute meaningfully. And the traditional academic pathways, while crucial, don't always offer that direct line to, broader impact.
But how did consulting even get on her radar? What was the spark?
It actually started with something pretty everyday these days, a LinkedIn post. It was from Dr. Masudi, who was promoting a webinar he was running called something like From Lab to Industry, Unlocking the Value of Your Scientific Expertise. That title alone probably just clicked with how she was feeling.
And this webinar wasn't just theory, right? It gave actual examples, which must have made a difference. Exactly. That was key. Dr. Masudi shared real stories, like a physicist who earned, I think it was $25,000 helping an aerospace company, or a biologist who made $10,000 pretty quickly just designing an assay for a startup. Seeing those concrete examples, other academics doing this while keeping their university jobs, that probably made it feel much more real, more possible for her.
Okay, so she's hooked. She sees it's possible. What was the actual game plan, the roadmap that Dr. Masudi's program laid out to help someone like her make that jump?
It was quite structured, actually.
Yeah.
Broke it down into clear steps. First step was critical, positioning as an expert. So for Dr. Smith, that meant really nailing down her specific niche CRISPR tech, especially her work on making it more precise and then figuring out which industries really needed that specific knowledge, like biotech, pharma companies working on gene therapies.
Makes sense. Can't be everything to everyone. You need that focus. What came after positioning?
Next up was building a personal brand. Sounds a bit corporate maybe, but it was practical. Dr. Masudi showed her how to rework her LinkedIn profile. Not just listing publications, but showcasing her research in terms of its applications, sharing insights about gene editing, basically turning her profile into something that would attract the right industry people.
Right, so making yourself visible and showing your value in industry terms. What about the nuts and bolts, like how much to charge?
Yep, that was covered too. Setting competitive rates, helping her figure out how to value her very specialized skills and the impact they could have. The program suggested starting around, say, $250 an hour. That positioned her as a serious expert, but still accessible for those first clients needing her CRISPR know-how.
Okay, pricing sorted. Then the big one. How do you actually find clients?
Yeah, the program gave specific strategies for finding clients. A lot of it was about strategic networking, identifying the right industry events, being active and smart on LinkedIn, using some specialized consulting platforms where companies actually post looking for niche scientific help. Dr. Masudi gave her pointers on how to make those connections effectively.
And it wasn't just about landing the gig, but making sure it went well, delivering value.
Absolutely. That was a big piece,
Right.
delivering exceptional results. Dr. Masudi even provided things like project templates, some basic scripts for initial calls,
Oh, okay.
just tools to make sure her projects were well managed, communication was clear, and the client was, well, thrilled. That's crucial for getting repeat business and building that reputation, right?
Definitely. Now, I imagine Dr. Smith, like probably most academics thinking about this, worried about the time commitment and, university rules about outside work. How did the program tackle those concerns?
Oh yeah, very real concerns. The advice was basically start small, don't try to do too much too soon, maybe just a few hours a month at first, just to test it out, build confidence, see what the real-time demand is. And crucially, the program also helped her understand and navigate her university's policies on consulting so she could do it all above board.
Okay, so she's got the plan. What were the very first things she actually did to get the ball rolling?
First, concrete action. She updated her LinkedIn profile, just like the program suggested, really sharpened the focus on her CRISPR expertise and how it applied to things like drug development, gene therapy. It was about sort of translating her academic achievements into language that resonated with industry needs.
And that simple step paid off pretty quickly, it sounds like.
It really did. Amazingly fast, actually.
Yeah.
Within just a few weeks, a biotech startup contacted her directly through LinkedIn. They were working on a new gene therapy and needed someone with deep expertise in optimizing CRISPR. Maybe they were having off-target issues, something where her precision focus was perfect. It was a direct hit from her updated profile.
Wow. But still, taking that first call, that first project, must have been a bit nerve-wracking, moving from the lab bench to advising a company.
Oh, for sure. It's a different world. But the training with Dr. Masudi wasn't just about the how-to. It also gave her the confidence, She understood her value better. She had a framework for those initial talks, how to structure things. It made taking that leap less daunting.
And that first project, what did it involve?
It was a pretty focused, short-term thing.
Yeah.
They basically needed her expert eye on their CRISPR strategy to help optimize it.
Yeah.
The contract itself was worth $5,000, which, isn't just money. It's immediate proof that, yes, this expertise has real market value outside academia.
And it wasn't just a one-time deal, was it? That first success led to more.
Huge success. The startup was apparently delighted. Her deep knowledge really helped them refine their approach. And because it went so well, it turned into a recurring annual contract worth $20,000 a year. That's a really significant ongoing relationship that stemmed directly from that first consulting gig.
So we're really seeing a transformation here for Dr. Smith. How did embracing consulting change things for her overall, career-wise, even back in her academic work?
The effects were, well, pretty broad and actually really positive all around. First off, the money from that initial project. It went straight into buying new equipment for her lab. That addressed a major pain point right there, less stress about resources. But it went deeper, engaging with industry, tackling their real-world problems. It actually sparked new ideas for her own academic research, questions she might not have thought of otherwise. So her publications got stronger, informed by practice. It created this positive feedback loop.
Huh. So consulting wasn't a distraction, it actually fed back into and boosted her academic work.
Exactly. And there were other benefits too. Because she was doing successful consulting, she started getting invited to speak at big industry conferences. That put her research, her name, in front of a much wider audience. That visibility led to media attention, new collaborations with top biotech firms, opportunities that probably wouldn't have just come through the usual academic channels alone.
That's a fantastic example of how these two worlds, academia and industry, can actually fuel each other instead of being totally separate. And Dr. Smith summed it up quite powerfully herself, didn't she?
She really did. She said, "I went from feeling invisible to being a recognized leader in my field. Consulting didn't just boost my income, it made me a better scientist."
Hmm. That quote just says it all, doesn't it? It wasn't just about money, it was about impact, recognition, and genuine professional growth.
So where does that leave Dr. Smith today? How is she managing this balance?
Well, today she's successfully juggling both. She's still a professor doing her academic work, but she also has this thriving consulting practice alongside it. She's earning, a very healthy $200 to $300 an hour for that consulting work, and she actually reinvests some of that back into her university lab, so it keeps fueling the research. She's really become this respected expert, a bridge figure in both worlds.
And her story, while powerful, isn't unique, is it? The source material mentioned other examples too across different fields. That's right. It's not just biotech. We heard about a chemist advising a cosmetics company on sustainable formulas earning $50,000 a year for that expertise. Think about that niche. Chemical interactions, environmental impact, valuable stuff. And also a physicist helping an aerospace company make spacecraft materials tougher, more resilient. That was a $25,000 project. So chemistry, physics, biology. It shows this applies across many scientific disciplines. The need for deep expertise is broad.
Okay, so if we boil all this down, synthesize everything we've talked about, what's the core takeaway from Dr. Smith's journey and these other examples?
I think the main message is pretty clear. Academic scientists are sitting on this incredibly valuable resource, their deep expertise. And often it's kind of underappreciated or underutilized just within academia itself. But industries out there, they're actively looking for exactly that kind of specialized knowledge to solve tough problems, to innovate, to get ahead. It's a huge, often untapped asset.
Which brings us right back to you listening to this, echoing what our source material really drives home. If these other scientists across different fields can do this, can unlock this potential, why not you? As the source puts it, quite directly, you could very well be sitting on your own goldmine of expertise that's really in demand.
Yeah, and if this whole conversation has got you thinking, maybe spark some curiosity about exploring this for yourself. The source material points towards Episteme Entrepreneur. It suggests checking out their platform, maybe learning more about Dr. Masudi's approach, the strategies involved, or even just reaching out for a virtual coffee chat to talk about your own background and what might be possible.
It really prompts you to think, doesn't it? To consider the real-world difference your specific knowledge could make. And the potential, both personal and professional, that might lie just beyond the traditional academic path. Definitely something worth mulling over. What could that hidden gold mine look like for you?